You are listening to Lovely Talks Heavy.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Lovely Talks Heavy. I am your host, Lovely, and I discuss everything I enjoy with regard to heavy music. First off, I want to say that Eurovision was absolutely fun this year. I wasn't able to watch the grand final live, but I can say that it was absolutely no surprise to me that Israel won with their submission, because Toy was a fantastic, fun little tune. Aside from Israel, I was rooting for Denmark, rooting for Finland, rooting for Hungary. Hungary for obvious reasons, that is, if you watched Eurovision, Hungary had a middle band this year. They were great. Sweden left something to be desired. Hopefully they can bring something better next year. I can't wait to see what Eurovision will bring overall next year. And my one big pipe dream of a dream for the next Eurovision is that Powerwolf throw their goddamn hat in the ring to represent Germany. Please. They've got a new album coming out this year. They can do the damn thing. I believe in them. It would be a hate crime if they didn't. Why exactly? Well, because I would just be very sad if they didn't. Hyperbolic jokes aside, let's get into the actual content of this episode. How about? So, I have a problem. A huge problem. And that I have a mountain of music to listen to. There's just so much of it. Old, new, not so obscure, pretty obscure. There's just so much out there that I don't even know what it sounds like, and I wish I did. A struggle that I'm sure a lot of people understand. However, nobody is suffering more than me, okay? There's just a lot of stuff that I haven't listened to because I'm either too busy being absolutely rock hard for the upcoming Powerwolf album, or I'm too busy being absolutely flaccid for the upcoming Lordi album. Which sounds weird and hyperbolic because it is weird and hyperbolic. The point is, my ears need to be open to new and different stuff, and I just have not allowed myself the opportunity. So, for this week's episode, I'm gonna rapid fire run through a handful of bands that I have yet to listen to, and discuss whether or not I dig them, and regardless if I don't like them, maybe somebody else will. Because I'm dealing with a lot of discographies that are new to me, I'm going to stick to one album per band for this episode, which can lead into a bit of murky territory because what if I happen to pick an album that is the band's absolute worst and even their most dedicated fans want to forget about it? But I don't know that, so I'm just led to believe that the band's just awful. What if the band is known for playing with a lot of different sounds, so therefore just listening to one album won't give me the full scope of what the band can do? What if I end up liking a band or musician's music, but it turns out they're a massive white supremacist? These are good questions for an episode like this, and I will keep them in mind for when I eventually revisit these bands. For now, I will just focus on the music that the band has to offer with the most cursory of Google research, so basically their Wikipedia articles, which is weird for me because I like to look at the whole picture of a band's presence, but there's just so much music to get through, and I just gotta get through it. I'm thinking this episode in particular will be heavy on the goth flavor because that's what I'm really feeling like right now. Plus, I feel like that for somebody that dresses the part, I don't listen to enough goth music. Like, actual goth music. Listening to him and dressing in all black, a goth does not make. So, I just need to form some opinions about some goth music and get a permit for the goth label before I get my goth license. So, let's dive right in. Despite hesitating to call myself goth in my latter years, I do have goth friends and have been subscribed to at least one goth YouTuber while on YouTube. So the name Crew Shadows was a familiar sight to me. The pronunciation was a new experience, however. I always thought it was Crux Shadows. Nope. The Florida Darkwave group have been at it since 1992, releasing new music at least once a year and apparently changing their lineup just as frequently, or at least that's what it looks like because, like, I looked at the Wikipedia page for Crew Shadows and the past members section is the collapsible feature of the page. Goddamn. Despite being in a genre that is known as dark wave, the emphasis should be on dark, and I also put it on wave, but emphasis on dark. Anyway, despite being in a genre that is known as dark wave, there we go. The the subject matter of their music appears to be quite optimistic, with the band following a motto of live, love, be, believe. The one album of Cruise Shadows that I gave a try was Ethernaut. And just from this one album, I can understand why goths flock to their performances at festivals like Wave Gothic Treffen. It sounds really good, really fun, and it establishes the perfect beat to do the stereotypical goth dance too. I also appreciate the incorporation of actual violins into an electronic sound. However, it's not entirely my cup of tea. My problems are that, say for a few songs on here, it just tends to run together, and it's very hard for me to distinguish one song from another. And that it just runs way too long. Many times over listening to this album, I kept checking to see if it was almost over. It feels like musically, it's just harping on the same point over and over and over again, and therefore for me, a lot of their songs that run at least 5 minutes could do well with being 2 or 3 minutes, which is kind of weird because I thought about the fact that my favorite song by Andrew WK is Slam John Against a Brick Wall, where in the song the only lyric is Slam John Against a Brick Wall, and it just repeats itself over and over again with increasing amounts of intensity. And also my favorite song by Scars on Broadway is Cute Machines, where it does the same thing and repeating the same 3 lines through the whole song, but with these songs, that kind of repetition feels way more purposeful for me. Regardless though, I wouldn't be mad if I were, say, at Wave Gothic Treffen and a friend dragged me with them to see Cruise Shadows perform on the stage, because I think some fun could be had with this music despite not entirely getting it, at least through the lens of this one album. And I did find myself enjoying 2 of the songs on Ethernaut, one being Cassandra, the other being Flame. I think particularly because the lyrics and use of violins stood out the most to me on these songs. So, that's one down. So many more to go! Is it a coincidence that I found myself liking an artist from Sweden? Yes, it is. It's not the location that makes me so biased towards Lizette, though that does help me a little, but rather I just found her music so enticing. This is another electronic musician that goths might find appealing. The album Queer Body is 7 songs of pure electronic delight, in my opinion. My top picks off this album would have to be Rest, Easy Street, and Scapegoat. And the latest single, which isn't on the album, but I heard it because I was just listening to the SoundCloud. The latest single, Trenslav, is just great. I love it. What makes this whole album appealing to me is that it's something that's perfect for a more chilled out mood for me. I love my heavy, hard-hitting, fast-paced anthems, but it wasn't until I heard Lizette for the first time that I realized that I do need more stuff in my library for a more relaxed atmosphere aside from the classical music that I only listen to when I write. It didn't take long for me to realize that Lizette is a new favorite. Okay, when I said there'd be some heavy goth flavor in this episode, you probably weren't expecting that to fall under a more electronic branch of goth. Don't worry though, I'm gonna completely deviate away from goth to talk about some good death metal. It all started one day when my friend Tino, hi Tino, said, "You should follow this friend of mine on YouTube. Her name is Emily Herwig and she does metal stuff." And so I followed her. She seemed all around really cool. Then she became part of a band known as Sisters of Suffocation. She discussed on her channel how she's a huge fan of the band and how cool it was that she's now a part of it. So I had to check them out, gave the Brutal Queen EP a listen first, and goddamn, this is some good ass shit. This is just the first thing at all to come out of the band, and it's a clear showcase of talent and well-crafted skill. One of the first things that you notice is just how well produced this album is. Like, goddamn. Most notable for me are the somber Tales of a Martyr, the fed up and appropriately titled Fuck It, and oddly catchy Host of a Dead Fetus, but honestly, this whole EP is just excellent. It's got deep and heavy chugging throughout, supplemented by some excellent guitar work, not only in solos, but in riffs too. I'm definitely going to be checking out the full length from Sisters of Suffocation. They're definitely going to be another favorite of mine. And if you're going to be at the Heavy Scotland Festival, they're going to be playing there, so definitely watch them on the stage. Stay around for the Carcass headline, though. We're gonna stick around the heavy end of the pool. Pool? Yeah, I'm gonna stick with that. To talk about Serpentine Dominion. I had heard of them before and was gonna get around to listening to them, but never did until now. I was kind of hesitant, mostly because a name like Serpentine Dominion makes them sound like a regular installment at a metalcore festival. Any subgenre ending in core, you can bet that I'm not well versed in or very drawn to. This, however, was a very poor assumption on my part, and I regret not listening to them sooner. The number one thing I need to get out of the way is that I had no idea that Serpentine Dominion was a supergroup. That's such a weird word to me, supergroup, but let's move on for now. But had I known that the biggest drawing factor for me, Corpse Grinder Fisher, was in this group, I would have been way quicker to the punch here. But I didn't know, and I feel like a fool. Was I under a rock this whole time? Did everyone neglect to tell me? Was there at least one source out there that did tell me and the information just flew over my head? Who knows? The point is that I very much enjoyed Serpentine Dominion's self-titled album here. Overall, I can say that the experience of listening to this album was equivalent to having a panic attack, mixed with being in a state of mania, but somehow a pleasant version of that. In one word, I think the best way to describe this album is frenetic. This is mainly illustrated in the guitar solos throughout the album, but is also present in the heart attack fast instrumentals that carry through most of a singular song, before shifting into something more melodic. You can hear this happening in the song Sovereign Hate, especially with the guitars that feel like the pulse of an EKG machine before taking on a more melodic shift. I like that the intro, simply titled Intro, is quite deceptive. It did give me the initial feeling that this would be a more significantly metalcore experience before sliding into the roller coaster of what the real experience of this music would be. However, Intro paired with Prelude feel like unnecessary calm intrusions into this album, although I like that they both transition into the songs that follow them. I think that is one technique that I will never tire of, is a good, smooth, amped up transition from one track into the next. It came to no surprise to me that this Endless War turned out to be my favorite song off this album because I'm a predictable bitch who loves anthems. We will fight, we will die, we will rise, endless war. I did not properly warm up for that. You know what, let's talk about the anthemic element of the song, because along with the rest of the album, the song has clean vocals incorporated into it, though mainly dominated by Corpse Grinder's distinct death growls. Someone significantly less initiated would probably hear Serpentine Dominion on Pandora or Spotify or a college radio show and think, did Cannibal Corpse do something different? I'm not sure I like this new turn for them, because of said distinct death growls. It's definitely not a clonable corpse, which is number one a good thing, because you can't say you're doing a side project and then it turns out the side project is just making more of the same shit that your main project is doing, because you can call your side band Device, but we all know it's just Disturbed with a different lineup, you piece of shit. That was hostile. I'm very sorry for that. I don't know what came over me. Where was I? Oh yes. I like that Serpentine Dominion did manage to blend a nice synthesis of the sounds that came together in making it. Killswitch Engage, Black Dahlia Murder, and Cannibal Corpse. So, yeah. New favorite. We're gonna lean back towards gothic, but this time it's gothic metal, mixed with power and symphonic metal. I'm talking about Crypteria, who formed in 2001, took a hiatus, and then came back in 2016 under a new name, and then she came. I'm not sure why they would have done that, but okay. Regardless, I'm going to be looking at an album from their days as Crypteria, and the album I'm looking at is Blood Angels Cry. This album leaves me with some mixed feelings. There are very clear pros and cons for me. The pros being that the album has a great opener with All Systems Go, and there are really good musical moments, like the pounding of the drums in the bridge of Scream, and the bluesy feel that's added with guitar notes in The Night All Angels Cry. The songs really come to life when the choruses kick in, with the layered symphonic choral vocals, which is amplified by Ji In Cho's amazing voice. However, that's also where some of the cons start to kick in for me. I feel like that this band really maxed out all their skill points on vocal delivery alone and wasn't sure how to distribute the rest of their skill points in, say, arranging or composing. The instrumentals not only feel flat next to the vocals, but they also feel off-center from what would work with the vocal style. This especially shows in the song I Can't Breathe, where it just feels like an unsuccessful attempt to marry symphonic choral vocals with the more classic rock and roll instrumental. When it comes to symphonic metal, the vocals are a very crucial, very important element, and Crypteria definitely got that memo. However, it needs to be able to work with the instrumental section of the music. There's also some very jarring and abrupt instrumental shifts, or the instrumentals to most of these songs just end the song way too quickly. It could extend to at least 1 or 2 bars longer. While I complimented the bluesy feel that was added into The Night All Angels Cry, I also have to note that towards the middle of the song, there's a sudden shift to where it just feels like a whole different, in my opinion, better song, and then it just cuts to what it was doing before. Overall, it feels like this album has a hard time focusing on what it wants to be, jumping around to different styles, trying to jump too quickly from different areas of songs where they would benefit from smoother transitions, and again, maxing out the vocal stat, and literally nothing else. Despite not liking a lot about this album, I still do think there's plenty to like. The top 3 songs for me on this album are definitely All Systems Go, Dream Yourself Far Away, and Sweet Revenge, as they captured me instantly, and the detriments, if any, are the least present here. All this said, however, this might just not have been a very shining moment for the band, and I will be sure to check out some of their later stuff to see if there's any improvements. We're gonna round out this binge by going a bit deeper into goth proper and away from the border between goth and metal. What am I saying? This band is called Then Comes Silence, who I stumbled upon when I realized that Bandcamp is a tool that I mega underutilize. So I went in there, typed goth into the search bar, and ran into this group. I gave their latest release, simply titled Blood, a try, and honestly, they are another favorite. Another addition to my goth/chilled moods playlist, and yes, before anybody goes onto their Bandcamp and notices that they're from Stockholm, it is a coincidence that they're from Stockholm, and I like them, don't at me. I don't think there's really much to elaborate on this album because I don't think it really needs it. This album has a nice, mean sound, mean as an average, not mean as an aggressive. It's really good at sounding like itself, if that makes any sense. Surely somebody that wouldn't be into this would say that every song sounds the same and that this is a flaw in the album, but I personally don't think that's an issue with this album because it at least sounds good. And despite sounding like itself throughout, I do think there are moments that stick out in each song that make them stand apart from each other while still being very evidently in the same family. It doesn't feel like Then Comes Silence is trying too hard with this. It feels natural, feels organic, it's a sonically pleasant experience. And while I did say that this is perfect for my chilled goth playlist, I think the energy is just up there that you can find yourself dancing in the goth club to Then Comes Silence. But you're not gonna find me doing that. That's just because there are no goth clubs where I'm at. And I'm very sad about it. So that's gonna do it for this episode of Lovely Talks Heavy, and I have to say, I honestly had a lot of fun with this. This might perhaps be a semi-regular installment on the show where I just chip away at a slowly eroding mountain of music that I have yet to listen to. God. I just remembered how large that mountain is. I'll get through it. If you haven't already, be sure to follow me on social media. On Twitter, Tumblr, YouTube, Instagram, and Mixcloud, I am Lovely Metalhead. Follow me on those platforms and share the show with a friend, why don't you? Invite them into this fun little party. I promise, I'll make it a good time. And until next week, next Saturday, the next episode of Lovely Talks Heavy, you stay brutal, my friend. Bye!